Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the SERMAPod. This is the podcast for the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. I'm the founder and CEO of SERMA, Rich Lenkov, and we are very privileged to have Arthur Bryant, who is a partner at Clarkson. He is the former chairman and executive director of Public Justice, a national public interest law firm. He is a Harvard Law graduate. He is one of the 100 most influential attorneys in America by the National Law Review Journal, named to that title twice. We're very privileged to have Arthur Bryant. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. My honor. Happy to be invited.
Arthur, we're discussing something that's been in the news over the last couple of months, especially these days, dealing with Title IX. You're one of the foremost Title IX experts in the country. Why don't you explain to our listeners and viewers first what Title IX is before we deal with some of the changes that the Trump administration has put in?
Sure. Title IX is a federal anti-discrimination law passed 53 years ago that says all educational institutions receiving federal funds cannot discriminate on the basis of sex. Period. That's it. So 53 years ago, it would be hard for many people now to even imagine how it was. There were jobs closed to women or men. There were graduate schools, business law schools closed to women, nursing schools closed to men, all sorts of jobs in them closed, usually to women. The discrimination was just rampant. All of that has changed. But where the most visibility for Title IX has been is in athletics. I should say it applies to every college and university in the country, Title IX does, because if the school has even one student with, for example, a Pell Grant, it's receiving federal dollars. And because it's receiving even a single federal dollar, it is governed by Title IX and can't discriminate on the basis of sex. Now, in athletics, what that means is because there are separate programs for men and women, those programs have to be equal. In particular, they need to give equal opportunities to participate to women and men. They need to give equal athletic financial aid to women and men. And they need to give equal treatment and benefits to women and men. And that's what Title IX requires in athletics.
Thanks. Great explanation. So, Arthur, we've covered extensively on this podcast and through other channels from SERMA name, image, and likeness revenue, which is still developing. The Biden administration had one set of guidelines for how schools should distribute NIL payments under Title IX. The Trump administration came in and changed those. Could you explain to us what happened before and what that change was?
Sure. I mean, first of all, the Trump administration didn't change anything other than a statement that was issued by the government. The issue, it is no question when NIL money is being distributed by the schools or the schools are involved in its distribution, Title IX applies because Title IX, like I said, applies to every educational institution receiving federal funds, period. There was an issue when the NIL payments were first involved and still for some schools. I wrote an article about this, co-authored an article with a colleague about the coming collision between Title IX and NIL. Because if an entirely independent third party, Pizza Hut, for example, announces it's going to give $500 a month to every football player at a particular school, and not a single dollar to any woman athlete at the same school. That's not a Title IX violation because Pizza Hut is not an educational institution receiving federal funds. Title IX doesn't apply to it. On the other hand, we said in the article, if Pizza Hut does it as the official pizza provider of the school, and the school's logos are on the Pizza Hut box, and Pizza Hut is working with the schools to do all of this and working to get the prime recruit for the football team, well, then the school's involved. It's covered by Title IX, so Title IX applies to all of it. And what was going on is the schools were generally using the collectives to say, oh, it's not us. It's an independent third party, which became increasingly clear as a fig leaf they're trying to use to cover up the Title IX violations and somehow claim they don't matter. But it was becoming crystal clear the schools are actually very involved in this, and NIL is covered by Title IX. Then the issue is, how is NIL covered by Title IX? And there was for those who knew a lot about Title IX, the only real question was, well, is it viewed as athletic financial aid, where the rules are very strict and proportional. If women are 50% of the women are 50% of the athletes, they need to get 50% of the athletic financial aid plus or minus 1%. Is that the rule that applies to NIL dollars? Or is it viewed more as treatment and benefits of the athletes, where there it's combined with all the other ways that women and men athletes are treated? And overall, it's got to be equal. Which way is it analyzed? Now, to be clear, the principle is still the same. It's got to be distributed equally between, or proportionally, I should say, between the men and the women. And what the Biden administration did is come out and said, this is properly viewed by all of the principles we've been enforcing for the Office for Civil Rights in the Department of Education for 53 years since Title IX was passed. It's athletic financial aid, it's proportionality, which is required. And the Trump administration then came forward a few weeks later and said they didn't agree with that there was not a basis for that assertion. They didn't explain why. It didn't change the law or any of the policy interpretations that led to that conclusion, but it didn't leave any question. Title IX applies. It's just a question of how exactly does Title IX apply.
So what's the practical effect of this change, if any?
I don't think there's going to be any practical effect of the change. It just creates a little more uncertainty about exactly what is the federal government thinking.
And what do you think the motivation is behind this? I mean, we've heard a lot about Trump's feelings on transgender athletes. He signed an executive order. He discussed that in reference to Title IX. Do you think those are associated issues?
Not particularly. I mean, I think what's going on here, this is all happening in the context of the House. There's a proposed settlement in House versus NCAA, an antitrust case, where part of the settlement is to authorize the payment of past damages against the NCAA and the conferences for depriving athletes of the right to seek NIL payments directly. And those dollars are going to be paid by the NCAA and the conferences to the athletes. But the settlement also says in the future, the schools can make NIL payments. Now, interestingly, the settlement doesn't say anything about the distribution of the payments by the schools in the future, because those are clearly covered by Title IX. But in the settlement for the past damages, the conferences and the NCAA are basically agreeing to distribute over 90% of $2.7 billion for past damages to the male athletes, 90% to football and men's basketball players, 5% to women's basketball players, and 5% to everybody else. And we, along with the Molo Lampkin firm and others, have objected that this is a straight out Title IX violation. And the conference are saying, and the NCAA are saying, no, it isn't, because Title IX doesn't apply to payments by them as opposed to payments by the school, and to damages payments as opposed to NIL payments. So we'll see. I think the Trump administration changed the rules because it was probably getting enormous pressure from the NCAA and the conferences. Don't muck up our proposed settlement in the House versus NCAA settlement any more than it's already mucked up.
Yes, for sure. The House settlement is pending. Interesting issues. Arthur, why UCLA women's basketball coach Corey Close said that of this directive, she said that this would push women's sports back 25 years. Why do you think she felt that way?
Well, if it were actually true, if the law aligned with at least the sentiments expressed in the press release that the Trump administration issued, it would basically say millions and millions, even billions of dollars could be paid to the men athletes and not the women athletes at the schools, even by the schools, to men and not to women, which is a direct violation of Title IX. But that if that could happen, then all the progress that women made in terms of getting equality, you can just wipe it all out. I mean, what's particularly astonishing is when Title IX was passed, like I said, 53 years ago, there was an effort to exempt revenue-producing sports from Title IX's coverage and say they should be treated differently. Congress rejected it. There were several additional efforts to say football and men's basketball, revenue-producing sports, shouldn't be covered by Title IX. Congress rejected it because this is a civil rights statute. And the basic principle was It covers the entire schools. If they want federal funds for their schools, they can't discriminate. And clearly, you can't discriminate against women to make money. You can't discriminate against women to avoid losing money. This is a civil rights statute. It is because these are nonprofit educational institutions funded in part by federal dollars. If they're going to be funded by federal dollars, can't discriminate. And so that's the principle, period. And you could say, well, they need to be able to operate like a business. And the answer is first, well, they're nonprofit businesses. But second, even businesses can't discriminate. And if they're discriminating on the basis of who's willing to pay money to them, that's not good enough. It's still discrimination, period.
What kind of litigation do you think we'll see as a result of this? And what are the chances of success, do you think?
Well, it depends on what schools do. Like I said, in the House settlement, there's a litigation, there's proposed settlement. There are already objections to it. If it is approved with disproportionate allocations of money, I believe there'll be an appeal of the approval and we'll have continued litigation. Some schools have announced that they're going to participate in the future parts of this and going to give over, I think it's $22.5 million a year to their athletes. Some have said we're going to distribute this proportionally between men and the women. They're not going to have any problem. Some schools have said they're going to follow the model for the past damages in the settlement and give over 90% of the money to men athletes at the school and not to women athletes at the school, that they're going to give the women less than 10%. Those schools are just looking at litigation. There's going to be, I think, litigation against the schools that do that.
Arthur Bryant from Clarkson, thank you so much for joining us on the SERMAPod. Please come back and keep us updated on this evolving and very important issue.
Thank you.